This is such a beautiful day, and I kind of imagine this is the sort of day you want to be traveling on Tuesday. Is the timing on Tuesday to do with the weather generally, that you kind of know you're going to get the chance to go for this?
Yeah, it's very much to do with the weather. It's a lot to do with wind strength, but also wind direction. Ideally, we want to spend as little time going upwind as possible. This boat is much better off the wind as well. So if we do that, we'll have a better time and we'll also go faster. So yeah. Well,
here you are, you're attempting the first all-female round Ireland sailing navigation. I don't know whether when you told people they thought, holy crap, that's a great idea, or whether anyone said, what the feck are you thinking? I mean, how did it come to you? Was it something that had always been sort of tinkering in the mind that we should do this, or I don't know how it came to be
about. Well, actually, to be fair, most people have been like, oh, that's a great idea.
Yeah,
well, that's probably because they don't have to do it. Yeah. That's a great idea for you to do.
The more we think about it and think of the West Coast, isn't it?
We're like, it seems like a good idea. I think I was actually, I was having a beer when the idea came around, so obviously it seemed like a good idea at the time.
Yes.
But actually, this boat has just done the Solitaire de Figaro, which is a solo-handed race in France that Kenny Rumble, who's also from Greystones, was doing. And so I was over there with him, and I was doing his preparatory stuff, which is being the shoreside supporting team. And we rented the boat. We had rented the boat from Marcus Hutchinson, who's also an Irish sailor, and he was out there. And one day I was sitting talking to him, and we were talking about, what else we could do, what I could do, and how we could maybe get more Irish sailors, particularly female sailors, kind of into double-handed and short-handed keelboat sailing and kind of skippering and navigating. And he kind of said, well, I'll give you the boat if you do something like, sail around Ireland. So I said, well, okay, I will. And then Kat and I met during the Solitaire, because she was doing the same job as I was.
I think, we have pretty similar ambitions, I think, with what we want to do with our sailing, and also getting more females involved in the sport and taking on roles on boats which are usually taken on by men traditionally. With a boat like this, there's only 2 people on board, and you have to do every role. You can't hide behind it.
Well, I don't know my history, but I'll pretend I do. When it comes to women in sailing, from Grace O'Malley to Naomi James and Christina Chumbawamba, whatever her name is, this wonderful woman, there does seem to be quite a good sort of pedigree of women, and I just assumed it was an equal thing. Or is it still, like, would the balance be still a lot of more men than women do sailing?
Yeah, there's definitely is. I mean, I think the thing is that you hear about the women because they probably stand out because there's not as many of them. So the stories of women who have done awesome stuff probably register a bit more, but the ratio of men to women sailing, and particularly like men to women skippering and nav, it's not really even. But there's a lot of things happening within the sport to kind of try and recreate that, particularly the Paris 2024, they've announced a double-handed offshore division, and the team has to be mixed. So you have to have a guy and a girl. So that's a female skipper and a male skipper. So things like that are kind of really opening the avenue of the sport. And again, this is kind of why we're doing this, is we want to make people aware that there are those avenues and that drive to kind of get girls not even just involved in the sport, but kind of taking on, aspiring to skippering, as opposed to just being crew. So
well, you're kind of this is Magenta Project are part of this, and their kind of sole purpose is to promote women in sailing. Was that something that you had been aware of beforehand, or had you been involved with them, or did they? I don't know how they became involved.
Yeah, well, Kat's been involved with the Magenta Project.
Yeah, the Magenta Project have helped me out over the last few years, and the women involved in the Magenta Project as well have been pretty big role models in the last few years for my own sailing. So I think it's really nice that we can partner with them, and they are a global charity as well. So hopefully we can reach out to more women a little bit further afield.
Well, there seemed to be a kind of, certainly Greystones has a long tradition of people who were, sailors and fishermen and all that kind of stuff. I don't know for both of you whether it was always part of your life, whether it was parents taking you sailing, or how you came to be at this point where you're attempting a world record.
Yeah, I think for both of us, we did grow up sailing, and Kat's parents didn't sail, but my parents did sail. But I definitely think that doesn't necessarily have to be the case. Like, we both grew up sailing dinghies on lakes, and now we're doing offshore sailing. So it's completely, a different avenue. It's very much open to anyone, I think.
Yeah, I think there isn't exactly like a set pathway to get into doing offshore racing like this. It's quite a niche thing to do, which I think what we want to kind of be a little bit of a role model and like an example that you can come from a completely different background or not have any links to sailing at all, and you can still go and achieve that.
And so for you two to kind of be drawn to it, was it just that it's in your nature to sort of push it out a little bit, or I don't know if there was somebody inspired you? I mean, as you say, it's not typical, so I don't know whether there was something about it that, okay, this is the kind of thing I want to, jump off a cliff occasionally. I want to try something a little bit more off the menu.
Yeah, I think probably for me anyway, I think there is something a little innate in it. I do remember like certain moments as a kid going out in the boat and like just wanting to go out in the big waves and out in the big sea. And the first few times I did go out ocean sailing, I just loved it, and I really do enjoy being out there. So there is something you have to have a passion for it, because there are hard times. So
I hope you cleaned it well now, because that was very important. It has to be spotless before you leave.
No worries, thanks guys. So I think you have to have the passion for it, because there's tough bits, and if you don't love what you're doing, then
but I think we're also both drawn back to the like the tough side of it. I think the extreme side of it.
Yeah. So it's like any challenge. It's like, I guess, the same as for people who want to climb Everest.
Sure. Well, I'm thinking now with this challenge, I would have no idea. Like, how many days do you expect it to be? I mean, is it like a 3-day thing? Is it 5 days? Is it more?
We're hoping it's 3, but it could be like 6.
Okay. and obviously it's Ireland, so we live in a blinky washing machine. It could be spinning 1 minute and it's dry the next, and it's wet the next.
Yeah.
I mean, that's obviously something you're prepared for. You just know, well, it's the luck of what way the weather goes with your sailing.
I mean, there's a certain amount of planning in like watching the weather and so on, but basically we're just getting prepared to be cold and wet. And if, as long as we're ready for that, then if we're not, that's an extra bonus.
Rock and roll. So we will try and keep track and let people know where you're at and all that, but you're starting here Tuesday evening, and all going well, around Friday, you should hopefully, who knows, but you might actually be kind of doing the full thing. Is it exhausting as a kind of a task? Is it something that you feel like it is a climbing of Mount Everest, or when you know what you're doing, is it, I don't know whether it just feels once you do the right thing, it's going to be joyful?
Well, I think it's just one of those things. There's going to be highs and lows. There's going to be some really good bits, but we are going to be wrecked and tired. Yeah, you're pushing yourself. It's a marathon.
Okay. And your friendship will be fine, won't you? Like, you won't go into any kind of weird castaway things, and you start befriending a ball, and you won't talk to the ball and all that.
I mean,
who knows?
I can rule it out.
Okay.